All right, you guys, welcome to another episode of The Common Theory.
All right. Let's talk rituals.
Oh,
Let's get into it right off the bat. So you don't play any rituals in your deck, right?
Yeah. Do you want me to start with basic background on the way I've described rituals? Whenever there's advice on subreddits?
Well, no, rituals are bad, though. That's what Puzzle said. Puzzle said that. I'm pointing the finger. I'm pointing the finger.
So let's start with an example of where that can be wrong.
Dargo.
Yeah, exactly.
I was sneezing. Sorry.
I think the modern version's Ketis Dargo. I actually haven't played against that one. But the point is, hyper aggressive decks, or just even combo decks that are looking to do things super early in the game. So if you can win or eliminate someone very, very, very early, then rituals might be good enough. But ultimately, that's a competitive view. Where I feel this question a lot is on Reddit, where it's people that are talking about mid power, or they're just getting into the format and they're coming from maybe like 60 card popper and have a ritual in there, or maybe they're coming from EDH where you have wheels and stuff, or good draw spells where you can make up that card disadvantage from the ritual very quickly. And it's all about adjusting their expectations on how important it is that you get value out of every card you use, and that the tempo gain of a ritual isn't always worth the lost card in Pauper Commander, and you really have to evaluate that carefully. And until they get to the point where they're much deeper into the format and understand the way things flow and how fast their deck has to be to make good use of it, rituals probably aren't a good call. So it's going to be quite a while before that person can actually make correct use of them. So that's the environment in which I'm usually giving advice on rituals. Moving to competitive, they are niche, but they definitely have their uses. Then that segues into your all's previous episode.
Go for it, Puzzle. Go for it.
No, let him finish.
No, that was it. You want me to sum up your episodes? I mean, I just listened to him catching up to this.
Okay, so personally, I would say that first off, rituals are a bit better than niche in competitive play, personally, because I think a lot of decks are trying to go turbo, so typically they're going to see a lot more play than they do in mid-power or casual. But
I was pretty pleasantly surprised. It was really cool seeing some of the decks that were much faster than expected because of the way they were built, and this Sir Conrad deck that we played in Game 3 was a good example. He was playing like Blood Pet and things like that to get Conrad out a turn faster, and the way he Conrad was not a style I have seen before, and I really enjoyed it. It was very novel. One of the themes that kept coming up was just the inventiveness of people's decks, and I was eating it up all day long. Anyway, you were saying.
Yeah, but we bring this up because in our video talking about RIW before it happened, we had which you did not see before the tournament, which is hilarious. We did like a theory craft of Vizcopa Guild Mage, and I was like, I think this is a strong anti-meta deck. It has a lot of things that it can do against the meta. But in my version, mine, because I'm me, was like a turbo combo, go crazy, put Children of Corliss or Crypt Rats into play early and just kill the table. You got a ritual, all these things out. So my list was playing basically every ritual.
Yep, and you didn't have to double activate Vizcopa because your very particular combo was going to gain you far more life. Whereas mine tends to double and triple activate Vizcopa, drastically increasing the amount of ramp I need in the deck.
Yeah, and mine's very focused on do it one time and the game's over. But I have playtested that version of the deck a couple times, and I can say with fair certainty, I've only played it 2 or 3 times, but I don't think that's the way to go. And you are not on a single ritual, so
I'm with you there, Puzzle. I had the same experience as well. So
whenever you all mentioned rituals, when I went back and like yesterday was watching that video, it actually did give me pause, and it warranted consideration because the deck is so damn mana hungry. And especially, if there's something like a Cryptras or Pestilence that comes down, having that extra, 3 black mana, that would be pretty amazing. But when else am I going to use it? Am I going to use it to actually get an extra Vizkopa activation? And I don't think I can because it's all black. So I saw this several times during the tournament where people actually were assessing me looking across the table. They thought I was actually closer than I was because they were just counting the number of mana available. And I've got, 3 colorless mana from a 4-drop rock and a colorless land like Study Hall or something. And that colorless mana is actually making me look like I have more available than I do because I need so much colored mana to cast a spell that requires colored mana, or maybe even cast Vizkopa, and then also pay the white-black for each activation. So if I want to cast Vizkopa and double activate them, that's 3 black and 3 white, plus whatever else I'm doing. So the amount of white I also need when I'm in these mana-hungry turns is pretty significant, and it makes a dark ritual or something like that not as helpful as it might at first seem.
Yeah.
See, my one counterpoint to this is that you said if you want to cast Vizkopa and activate him twice, you need how many black pips?
3.
But I can think of a card that costs 1 black mana that makes 3 black pips. But obviously, I've already said that.
Yeah, but I mean, I play swamps too.
Yeah.
So now,
what's that?
If I have Dark Ritual satisfying all the black mana requirements, those swamps are also just as good as colorless now.
We play snow-covered swamps.
What's the bubbling buck coming up?
Nope, don't need it.
But go ahead.
Because of that need for a lot of white mana as well, I actually do play more rocks that give me any color, or lands that are tapped and give me both colors. So actually I don't run as many basic swamps as you might expect either, which decreases the effectiveness of a bubbling muck. Like, I think 3, maybe 4 swamps was the most I had in any game this tournament.
Yeah, another card to bring up that stands out that's not in your deck, Snuff Out. Seems like a pretty easy, you have to play this card.
No.
I had it, my deck box, I don't have it right now because this was, I took it out for the tournament itself, but a lot of times I just have the maybe board kind of stuck in the back along with the tokens. And I had Snuff Out in the maybe board, and it didn't get included because I didn't feel like altering the online deck list again and sleeving and unsleeving things. It was heavily considered.
Oh my gosh.
So,
would you play? How about this? Would you play it? Sorry to interrupt,
absolutely.
but yes, would you play it?
Yes.
Okay.
It would have saved my ass the last game that I actually, the only one I lost.
Yeah, we are huge. We are huge believers in the free spells. Very much so, and that was a huge just. But
and
obviously,
the other reason I didn't take that was because I didn't feel like fighting through. Okay, what am I replacing with it? Because, well, you want to segue into the card we talked about earlier that you all find hilarious that it's in here?
No, we're not trying to cook. We're not trying to cook right now. I don't need to do any baking.
So separate thing we'll get to later. There's some very specific card choices, and I didn't know which one I wanted to pull for it. So by the time I was in the second game of the day, I was like, yeah, I should have had nothing. But I don't. So let's do this.
Sure. So let's talk about it. Bake into a pie is in your deck instead of Snuff
Out. You stop and then you just do it.
He did it. He Puzzle goes all in.
I don't care what Chris says. I'm going.
He's going in.
Yeah. Bake into a pie. 4 mana instant. Destroy target creature. Create a food.
He gets a food puzzle. That's good. Food, bro.
Is losing Snuff Out good?
No.
Yo, gain 3 life or lose 4 life. See how good that is?
I am not removing Bake into a Pie for Snuff Out. I'm finding something else to remove because. So this actually gets into a little bit of the history of the deck. When I first made the deck, I did not have all the black draw spells. So the play pattern that I would run into is I would only have enough cards to really have like one, maybe 1.5 goes at comboing, and sometimes I would even just like end up playing flooded and not be able to find, the one additional piece of 5 more life gain to close out to finish off the table. Even in the super slow casual games I was playing back then, I wasn't drawing enough cards by turn 10, 12 to finish out the game. So from that perspective, I employed back then, the way the deck was built was under the idea that instead of drawing cards, I was going to make it to where every single card had the potential to end the game if I had enough mana. And I still have remnants of that style of thinking where it's like, okay, I need removal, but I'm going to make sure it gives me just a little bit more of a resource that I can use to try to close out the game, because even though I've included all this card draw, there's still a part of my brain that's like, maybe I don't quite get there because that was my original experience with the deck. So it's kind of this artifact of how the deck has evolved over time that maybe I don't need it, but it makes me feel more secure in how I play the deck and makes me calmer and less jittery when I have that food sitting on the side. Like 2/3 of the time, I'm not going to make use of that food, but it makes me less worried about, am I going to be able to get there if people leave me alone long enough, and gives me the kind of peace of mind to focus on politics a little more and be more effective in that arena.
So I think we're friends enough now to make jokes. Just be careful. Somebody's gonna flash in Cathar Commando, destroy your food with open mana. You'll be like, my food's destroyed.
I mean, honestly, if they want to do that for a food, and whenever we've gotten the crystal off, that's fine too. So, game 3, I had that Sunspring Expedition out on the side where I had just emptied the turn before. I had played my last land. I was up to 6 mana available, and then I draw Sunspring Expedition. I'm like, well, I'm not going to have more lands to trigger it. It's going to be 8 turns before I'm able to get 3 counters on it. I play it, I say as much. If you all want to remove it, that's your problem. Waste it. Go for it. So, I mean, if people want to waste removal on things that aren't guaranteed to be a game threat, that's their problem, not mine.
I do have a question to kind of... I've figured out a way to kind of explain some of the ways I do deck building here with this this topic. So, which card, if you had to choose, would you rather play? Snuff Out or Bake Into a Pie?
If I'm not in a combo meta, I'd say Bake Into a Pie. If I'm in a combo meta, Snuff Out, like, okay.
If you're going to a tournament.
Yeah.
Depends on what I expect. In this tournament, I expected more middle to slow combos because we hadn't been seeing as much of like Lore Weaver recently. I wasn't expecting as much turbo combo, and that's what I lost to in the final round, was 2 very fast combo decks, Malcolm Kedis and Disciple of Deceit. And so I was building towards a slightly slower meta, expecting the combo decks to be there, Gretchen and Abdel, to be very... I was expecting people to metagame against them and be controlling them carefully, which would slow down the game and buy more time for me to have that mana and to grind for a little extra value. So that's why
that's a big deal.
Didn't think too hard about it. But if we're going into a tournament meta and there have been more talk about, Disciple of Deceit, or people talking about like when they play Abdel, they're just going to fucking go for it and play the combo as quickly as possible, then I would probably use Snuff Out instead if I had to pick one.
Well,
okay. So,
go for it, Puzzle.
I just want to say, assuming we want to play Snuff Out instead, I wouldn't see it as, okay, so you want to play both, right?
Yes.
So you're still saying you want to look for a slot for Snuff Out. But if we know we would rather play Snuff Out, I think it's easier in deck building to just make the switch of Bake Into a Pie for Snuff Out and then go, okay, I'm looking for a slot for bacon to a pie instead of snuff out because I know for a fact that I want to play snuff out.
I think you skipped the obvious question. That's what card would I ever play snuff out with, and that would be Pious Warrior. I drew that piece of garbage 3 times, and was like, why is this still on the deck?
You did say that. You did say that. You were like, oh, this is a bad wall of hope.
So in this instance, it's pretty easy.
Yeah.
But,
Yep.
Wall of Hope, 1 mana, cares about non-combat damage dealt to it, still gains you life. Pious Warrior, 4-drop, 2/3, that only gains you life on combat damage. Ugh. Like, I drew that thing 3 times this tournament. It was not great. Yeah.
but yeah, when I'm switching out one card, the way I usually see deck building is I make a switch, and then I go, okay, now I want to put this card back in. Is there something worse? And then I make that switch. And I just keep going down the chain until I find, yeah, this is the card that is not worth the slot in comparison to anything else.
Whereas for me, it's easier to do the direct swap instead of putting the steps in between, because the way I'm processing it is, this is the current state of the deck. This is the current feel of the gameplay that it has when I use it. And what is the feel I'm going for? Does this swap move it in that direction? And doing the step in between makes it harder to see the connection and understand the change in the feel of the gameplay to me. So it's just kind of a quirk about how I think about it. It's a little more holistic, if that makes sense. Sorry, I know.
That's fair.
Like, Clay's a big fan of using those big words, and sometimes it feels like it gets in the way of people actually understanding what he means, and I try to stick to basic language, but I don't know. In this case, it just dealing in vague impressions of how the deck is and how this card choice affects my impression of it. It's
If I may, I try to be the dummy here because I try to specifically speak towards only the new players, right? Like, and I'm not saying new players are not intelligent, right? Most likely they're more intelligent than I am, but I like to speak in the most simplistic terminology as possible so they can understand when I'm speaking about like any of it, like the politics and things of that nature. So
you make it accessible.
Exactly. So I try my best to not use the acronyms or things of that nature. Now, sometimes I do mess up, of course, but that's one thing I definitely try to hit on.
Right. Anyway, that's all I had on bacon to a pie.
Oh, we're baking pies? All right.
Actually, there was one other thing for Snuff Out. Was it Gator? I think you were talking to people about Snuff Out.
In what regard?
Like, didn't you say that you were talking to people and you heard that they thought I had Snuff Out in the deck? And were
yes. So I had a few individuals walk up to me during the event, and they specifically were like, I was going to do this, but I was afraid of if I swung and they had the Snuff Out, they would have ended my stuff. So I attacked someone else. And I was like, he won without even winning. Like he won without even winning. Like
there was no Snuff Out.
There was no Snuff Out. Like this guy was so good at pulling the wool over someone that they just assume, because so I have to say okay, all right, I got to gather all the thoughts, right? From my perspective, when these individuals walked up to me and said this, they were just like under the impression, they were like, that guy, that's one of the RC members, right? And I'm like, I don't know if I'm supposed to say. And I'm like, yes. And they're like, so he knows what Snuff Out is. I'm like, yes. And they're like, was it in the deck? And I'm like, oh.
And if I remember correctly, one of the people that was asking this was David, the Arenas player that top forward, that was an absolute monster.
Yes, we were speaking about it.
Yeah, this is not like someone who is inexperienced or like bumbling around. This is a person who knows their stuff and played very well, and it had them fooled, apparently.
Well, so people just assume. So speaking of David, which was a fantastic player, I'm going to throw those 2 cents out there. Absolutely fantastic. We were playing and doing the deed, he changed my opinion on a few different subjects. But I will say, after the match, we were having a great discussion, and he specifically said, yeah, my deck was metagaming against Gut and Abdel. And Gretchen, yeah, that's not even a deck against me. And not in like that, you know, negativity, right? Just in general, he's just like, yeah, I could beat these. That's what my deck is doing. And I'm like, wow. Oh, go for it.
I was kind of lucky. So I have a Gut Urchin player in my local meta. Their deck is not as refined as David's, and I immediately after our match tried to get the Moxfield link so I could take that back to my local meta player and like, dude, check out this cool tech he has. This is how he's getting things done. This is how he has so much fodder to sacrifice. Things like that, and. But just the point is, I was familiar with the late game play patterns of Arenas already, and it felt like a lot of the other people there really didn't know what to think of it. So in my game with him, it took him destroying like 2 or 3 creatures in one turn for them to be like, oh, wait, that's how this works. Oh, no.
Yeah. Well,
so I had a little bit of a leg up there having already been familiar with the deck.
Well, so I will have to put this out there. That is not a deck I would recommend to a standard player. And I say that because
not at all.
No, he was incredibly diligent, incredibly fast with his gameplay. Yeah. He was able to be like, boom, 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 sticker, boom, 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 boom.
Yes.
And I have
a lot of moving.
Correct. To date, I have never seen a player play Arenas at that speed.
And
period.
Just adding on,
right?
It's not just the mechanics, it's also that deck with its instant speed interaction. You need to have constant awareness of everything that's going on, or you're going to miss your window of opportunity to do things, and you have to know the stacks backwards and forwards to be able to layer things to your advantage.
Correct. And he made it a point to play test against like 3 of the top decks, right? There are other top decks, but he made it a point to play against the more of the recent ones. And he played against those, and he knew that game, and he knew that plan. Yeah. So he did his homework, and with him top 4ing, it was well deserved, right? Like,
definitely,
he did the work, he put in the time, and it was demonstrated during the event. So there's nothing you can't say about that person and their play patterns and how they effectively won the game or did their game plan.
Just in terms of how I saw it, he also seemed like the single player the entire day that kept their eye on me the most, that never really took the bait politically. He was going to keep Vizcopa off the board every chance he got, and it was going to make my life difficult, and I had to have other players kill him.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it happens.
And we can do a whole, like, if you want a supplementary thing, we can go over all of Game 2, and that was the most ridiculously political game I've ever played, and it was incredible.
Anything else you'd like to add to end this up for us?
Just going back to what you were saying at the beginning about how incredible it was that we were all converging and how happy we all were about it. Like, there were a lot of people coming this weekend that I was, excited to meet because I've interacted with them over and over and over. Alcadron, Liam, etc. Like, people that I've been talking with for years. You all and me have always kind of run in parallel. You all being more on the competitive side, like, we know each other exists, but we haven't directly talked like much at all. And you all were like the big surprises for me. Like, I got there, and even like the first day those discussions started, and I was having a blast talking to you all. So thank you all. I had such a good time talking to you all, and I knew I was going to have a good time, but it was just an extra great surprise on the side of everything else. So thank you all for being so much fun to talk to.
Bro, thank you. Like, I had a great time, so.
It was awesome indeed. But yeah, we ready to close this out?
Actually, I guess.
Oh, one last thing.
In addition to like feeling like I got lucky, it was kind of frustrating seeing some of the competitive decks not quite go off. Like, part of my casual mindset is I want to see the potential that every deck can bring to muster. And, kind of like that the ideal you hear espoused when talking about casual mulligans. You know, mulligan until you get a good hand because I want to see what your deck can do, that kind of thing. So as much fun as I had, and you know, as great as it was to win, there's still a part of me that was frustrated that, like, me and Puzzle's game together, if he had an island, he probably would have taken it. Like, the way the politics of that game were, he was set up to dominate, and there would have been nothing that I or the Conrad player could have done about it. So there's also this sense of like a little bit of a missed opportunity. And like what you were saying about Gator in our first game, where he targeted you at his own detriment, and that kind of knocked you out early. There was definitely a sense of some of the real veterans not having a great time. Like, even there, Be Fine, I'm new to playing and talking with him. He seemed frustrated after the fact too. I know.
That's his deck. That's his deck. That's his deck.
He was playing a rogue, yeah, with trying to metagame in his own way. And then Clay's Dargo deck was also having a rough time of it. So I don't know. There was this sense of missed opportunities, and I wish I could have gotten to see what your all's decks do more. But there's an easy solution for that. We'll play some more later.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Agreed. Agreed. Well, Puzzle, take us home, my man.
Alrighty. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, watching today. Be sure to check in the description down below. We'll have a deck list posted for the Vizscopa deck for sure. Probably put a link to the stream from the tournament if you want to go check that out. Leave a like while you're down there. Leave some comments. Give Paul some love. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you all next time.